to share with you. I'm not going to say a bunch of introductory things, just go right to the point. So the church migration and the role of faith-based communities. It's an interesting topic. And so I'm not sure what the main question I think is, who should be leading the way in terms of leadership on immigration issues? I'd say many people would say the church, but I'm not sure that's always happening. And so that's what I want to talk about. For sure, the church publishes many nice documents, and many bishops give their support, and cardinals 100%. However, from where I stand, not all are committed to doing what we're supposed to be doing. So this is the Casa Migrante. This is a school we built. This was my pandemic project. We built a school for migrants, and we give all sorts of classes. So this is the church in action. And to be honest, the bishop, what's the word? He gave me a little grief saying that I didn't ask permission to build this building. And so I said, well, you were at the groundbreaking. And then he said, well, that cost a lot of money, a lot of donors. And I said, just one donor. And that opened his eyes a bit. So there are some priests and bishops who speak out on a very big basis in terms of supporting and protecting migrants. Cardinal Ramazzini does this in so many ways. He's an example for so many bishops if they would only follow him. So one of the things that work here in Mexico is the Episcopal Conference of Mexico on the Pastoral of Human Mobility, an office that really functions well, that really supports casas and faith-based organizations. In Mexico right now, there are 55 casas being somehow supported by the conference, the human mobility. And they also organize all sorts of conferences, workshops. They have an annual conference for 4 days. We have a WhatsApp group where we can find support and have questions answered. It's an example of a mechanism that functions well on the national level in Mexico. And for something to function well on a national level in Mexico is almost a miracle. So there are a lot of bishops on the local level, I think, who do their job, like Bishop Seitz at the El Paso Diocese. He's really a great voice for the migrants at the border. So he's one of the good ones. I believe some are fearful to lend their support because, as one bishop said to me, every time I talk about migration, I get a flood of letters just reminding me that I shouldn't be talking about immigration. So I think what we need to do is when bishops speak out on immigration and they say good things, we need to send them a flood of letters to tell them they're doing a good job. They need to hear about this. All bishops support the wonderful documents we have, like Strangers No Longer Together on the Journey of Hope, which was published 20 years ago and somehow resurrected this last year. A wonderful document with wonderful ideas. What happens though is that many of the beautiful words do not seem to always trickle down to the people in the pews. The people in the pews just don't get the message to them. Priests do not preach on immigration. And why would they not preach on immigration? It might affect the Sunday collection. People might get mad at me and say nasty things at the end of Mass. It's a topic I do not know too much about. However, a topic that priests are not afraid to preach about is pro-life. And they do that with a lot of enthusiasm. I asked a bishop one time if he thought the pro-life movement could be connected to the topic of immigration. And he said, I don't think so, because it's so different. So my question was to him, what's different? So many innocent people are being killed at the border. Shouldn't we be standing up for their lives as well? it kind of left him in silence. I think all forms of life need to be protected, not just before people are born, but after they're born as well. And I think this is where the church needs to do an important job. The good news is that when the church doesn't move, faith-based organizations are moving. In 2016, there were only 5 casas for migrants in Tijuana. And the head of immigration asked us if we would begin to support all the immigrants that were arriving. So in 2016, we had people from 34 countries, a big number of Haitians, and we supported them. And so what happened is that we increased from 5 casas to today to 35 casas in Tijuana. And that's a wonderful thing. Only 7 of them are Catholic based. The rest are mostly evangelical, Christian, or private. And now some are even being closed because organized crime goes after them and attacks them, and they have to close because they're fearful. The role of faith-based initiatives is absolutely essential. And I consider the Casa Migrante a faith-based group. Yes, we're part of the church, but we represent all those who have no church. And sometimes people are left outside because there are so many things that they need to do to get in, and they just can't get in. So we supporting migrants who arrive on a daily basis, deported, migrants who arrive for their CPP one app appointment, and migrants. The vast majority we have in the Casa, about 40%, are people escaping the violence in southern Mexico. So we need to really work at making the borders more friendly and trying to do more to help people. For example, some practical steps. I just want to leave you with some practical steps. Number 1, we need to put people in contact with their immigration roots, as if they have amnesia, because everybody forgets where they came from. And so, for example, in the last 20 years in Tijuana, we've gone from 1 million to 2 million people. Who are those people? The vast majority are immigrants. And Tijuana is being built on the backs and shoulders of immigrants. I honestly don't know what we would do without them. I believe the church needs to reach out more to people. About 3 years ago, a local pastor said to me, "Father Pat, I have some immigrants for you." And I asked him, "Well, how long they've been here?" He says, "They live in back of the church. They've been here about 3 years." I said, "No, after 6 months, they become your parishioners. Take care of them." He didn't like that. And he has a canon degree from Rome, but doesn't know how to be a pastor. Seems to be that local churches needs to be more in touch with faith-based organizations, seeking ways in which they can be more collaborative and support for the new migrants. It's simply not enough to publish theological documents, but we need to do some meaningful pastoral reactions. Let me share 2 success stories. This is a picture of Our Lady Guadalupe Scalabrini Parish in Chula Vista, who several months ago began to accept people, 20 people a night in the parish hall, people who needed hospitality before they would take their trip to wherever they were going, because they had the first step in asylum. And so the parish, again, with some lay Scalabrinians, made the decision to open up the doors of the church and allow these people to stay in the parish hall every night. It was 20 people, and they would leave in the morning, and then by 4 o'clock, a new group of 20 would come. This, I think, is an example of radical hospitality, where people see a need and they respond to it. And this is a good example for other parishes. Many of the diocesan parishes didn't want to do it because it's too risky, too insecure. Well, shame on you. You should be risky. Another example is a kind of a little miracle that happened here. Last December, the 8 local parishes decided they would do a collection for the Casa del Migrante. First time in 11 years that churches reached out to us. And it was really simple. They did a Sunday collection and they brought all the collections to the Casa. They felt good about it. We felt good about it. It was a great way to see the local church in action. I would say they're not ready to offer radical hospitality. They still call me when they have an immigrant, but at least they took a step in the right direction. And we have to give people an opportunity to take steps so that they can move in the right direction. Some other ways to be active: allow migrants to share their stories, maybe a post-reflection after communion, organize field trips for parishes to local faith-based organizations to have a feel for what they do. Recently, we've had high school groups come into the Casa doing activities with the kids. We've had university groups that come on a regular basis. We have somebody from Loyola. Loyola comes 3 or 4 times every semester. And this way, lives are touched. When you see a migrant face to face, he's no longer a number. She's no longer a number, but she's a real person that you could relate to. When parishes and universities visit the Casa, they have face-to-face encounters. And so invite faith-based organizations into your churches, or go visit faith-based organizations. And finally, to any priest who might be living, be bold and preach on the gospel of welcoming the stranger. It's what we need to do. Finally, I just want to finish with Pope Francis. You know, he came to Mexico a few years ago, and on his visit in Ciudad Juarez at the border, he simply said some profound words. A person who thinks only about building walls and not bridges cannot be considered Christian. I won't say who he was talking about, but you can imagine. The church, migration, and the roles of faith-based communities is all about building bridges and tearing down walls. So maybe we're starting Lent today. This could be a Lenten project for all the churches. Build faith-based communities in your parochial centers. Thank you. That's it.